Welcome to Get2Biz, a podcast where we discuss business, spirituality, and life motivation for everyday living. We're here to help you navigate through life using these down-to-earth principles and up-to-date knowledge. Now, without further ado, let's get to biz.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Get2Biz, where we bring you business motivation and education. Hopefully have a little bit of fun with it. As you've gone along with us on this journey of Get2Biz, you know me, I'm your co-host Bryant, and my co-host Tony couldn't make it here today. But nonetheless, we're going to bring you some more education and information. And if you've been along with us on this journey, you've heard me talk about a lot of classroom principles and disciplines to apply to your business. In particular, if you're an early stage entrepreneur or a small business looking to pivot. And throughout this journey, we have been fortunate enough to have very special guests. And we continue today with another person who I've had the pleasure of knowing for a few years, who's definitely on her entrepreneurial journey and has been on it for a while. And she's constantly innovating herself and continuing to bring more things to the market. And today I would like to introduce you to someone, a new member to the Get2Biz podcast family, Tae Lee. Tae Lee, I would like for you to introduce yourself. And what we're going to do with Tae Lee before she introduces herself is just tell you a little bit about her journey in the entrepreneurial space, give you a little brief background about herself, and then what drove her into thinking about how she wanted to become an entrepreneur versus going in a traditional market of, post-college and so on. So Tae Lee, welcome.
Hey, nice being here.
Hey. So, like I said earlier, tell us a little bit about yourself, just kind of go over your resume, overview of your background, what things you're doing currently, and what led you to where you are today.
Okay, so my name is Tae Lee. For everybody that doesn't know me, I know he said it, and I'm the founder of Never Go Broke, and we're a financial education company that we teach all of our clients. We give them financial education, financial blueprints, financial guidance, step-by-step training, all which teach them how to be successful wealth building adults. And so my entrepreneurial journey started after college. I was about to tell a story. It started after college. I went to college to be a teacher. And then when I went to college, I could not find a job. So I ended up getting a job that I hated. And I was like, it's something that I can do in order to not hate my life forever. And that is how I first started my entrepreneurial journey. That was in, I want to say 2010. I think it was 2010. So if it was in 2010, yeah, I've been doing it for a while now. I've had more than one business. So my first business was not the business that I'm currently in now. But with entrepreneurship, that happens sometimes. Sometimes you say, oh, okay, I'm going to do this business and I'm going to love it. And then you realize that it's not going to happen and you have to pivot. So. Yeah.
Absolutely. I want to touch on something you talked about. Tell a little bit about, as I talked to a lot of early stage entrepreneurs, they may be doing various things in their careers or life. They could still be in college potentially now. We're thinking about education. Tell us about what you went to college to get an education degree. And you said you had your first job and you hated it. Was that in your field or your discipline?
No. So I went to school for education and then I ended up waitressing. So I ended up waitressing at a restaurant and I hated it. So I already had bartending skills because I had been bartending and waitressing, but it was in a different atmosphere. When I got out of college, because I looked for jobs forever and nobody would call me back. Nobody would give me a job. Nobody would do anything. And so I was working at a lounge bar. They ended up closing down. So after that, I was like, I got to figure something out because I'm still looking for a job. I found a job at a restaurant. I hated it. I hated it. And I was just like, oh my God, I cannot do this forever. So that's how I began my entrepreneurial journey.
And so what you're saying is you did try to pursue your original dream of becoming this educator and bringing things forward, and you couldn't necessarily find something in your field. And like most people, you say, hey, I still got to make something happen. Just because that's not coming through at the moment, that doesn't mean I can sit by idle and wait for things to come to me. I have to go find it. And what you found you didn't like, and you decided to do something else. And I'm assuming is this where the vision for Never Go Broke came about, or was it something else before you got there?
No. So my first business was called Tae Shoes and Accessories, where everything makes you say, oh, Tae. So that was the first business. We sold shoes and accessories. So we did like a lot of pop-up shops, online selling, moving around, going to barbershops and hair places and anywhere where people would buy shoes. We did a lot of festivals and things like that. So that was the very, 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 very first business.
And so, I think how scary was that for you? When I think about people who are pursuing any type of pivot or change, that it can be very difficult. The one thing I want to take a second to give you kudos for, and I talk about this, if you listen to some of the previous podcasts, if you haven't, please go back and check us out. You can find us on all the major streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so on at Get2Biz. I always talk about people who are in a situation that they don't like, but don't try to change it. And one of the things I give you kudos for is that you saw something you didn't like and you decided to do something about it and make a change. And I say that to say that I know it's scary sometimes to make a change. I know it's difficult because yes, you didn't like that role, but you knew what you had. You knew how often you were going to get paid. You knew what the management was like. You knew what the work was like. And you decided to go do something different. So tell us a little bit about, if that was scary for you, you just may have this ability that, hey, you have no fear. I don't know. But how was it just to kind of make that leap into that shoe business that you talked about, or get into the fashion industry?
It wasn't, I mean, you're going to always be scared when you start something new because it may or may not work out. But for me, I think I wanted the freedom more than I even almost cared about failing, if that makes sense. So I was like, yeah, so I hate this so much. I hate this so much
right.
that I'd rather go out, start a business and fail completely than stay here forever and not really make the money that I want to make. Yeah. So I think it depends on how bad you want it.
So to that, then, not that you were fearful, you had felt like you were at your worst case scenario. By you stand at that place, you're like, hey, it doesn't get any worse than this. So no matter what I do from here, it's going to be, at worst, it's going to be the same. So you haven't lost anything by investing in yourself and betting on yourself. In one of the previous series, I talked about, or maybe some comes, I don't know. Anyway, I talk a lot about some of the same topics. And the reason people, again, you hear me say the same topics over and over again, is because it's hard to digest and process a lot of information. You learn through sometimes repetition. And I'm bringing on different guests and people to talk about some of these things. You can hear that same type of repetition through their tone and what they've done. So with that being said, when it was she kind of took an approach of, I have nothing to fear. I'm at my worst case scenario. So what could possibly be worse than me being miserable today? So now, as you're going back to your entrepreneurial journey, and what led you to the next thing though? How did you close out Tae? And then what led you from Tae to the next thing?
So let me try to remember everything. It was so long ago. So the next entrepreneurial journey I had was First Alert Tax Services. So no, that is such a story. I started doing taxes. I worked for a company doing taxes. I'm like, that is not right. I started working for a company doing taxes. I was just over everything in that office that we were doing. So I started that process and I worked for the company, I think for like 4 years because I did a franchise. So I bought into their franchise. And we did that. And it was, right. I was doing Tae shoes and I was doing the taxes at the same
goodness.
time. Yeah, I think I was doing both at the same time. So it was definitely a process.
Yeah,
it was definitely a process.
I can't imagine. And I'm going to get back to the tax since it's tax season has been extended, so it feels like taxes all year round, and for some of us, it is truly all year round. So I can only imagine being in the business. But as you were doing both, I think sometimes people are thinking about what do they want to get into as a business, and you just talked about something that I think is an option for a lot of people is the franchise model. So you were at First Alert Tax Services, but you weren't. You decided to. I think if I heard you correctly, buy into your own franchise.
No. So that's why I said it wrong. So
okay.
I worked for a company and I bought into their franchise.
Correct. Okay. Yes.
Oh, so yeah. So I bought into their franchise, and then after we did like a contract with the franchise just to kind of see if I liked it, and that was something I wanted to do. And after the contract for the franchise ended, I transitioned into my own company.
Okay, and was it still a tax-based service that you transitioned into?
That was First Alert Tax Service.
That was okay. Yeah. So again, I think it's still relevant though. You tried something out by buying into an established model instead of trying to create it from the ground up.
Exactly.
And you learned from that experience, and then you say, hey, I'm assuming this, I could be just filling some gaps there for it. If I'm speaking too much for you, just please stop me. You decided then to say, you know what, I think I could do this on my own, and kind of branch out. Yeah.
It's a learning process when it comes to it, because it's like, okay, you're trying to learn it, you're trying to make sure you know everything, you're trying to get it all together. And just me actually being over the offices that I worked for with the company, doing everything, and actually doing the franchise, it allowed me to see if it was something I wanted to do on my own. Did I like it? Did I want to stay where I was at? What did I want to do? And so from there, I was like, you know what? I want to do this on my own.
You may be, for some of the listeners, I think what Tae has done here is a wonderful thing. She was in a place that she didn't like and kind of did a hard stop and say, hey, I'm going to do my own business. I know I run into a lot of people now where their college students are entering college or just about to finish up. Yes, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to start my own business. But one of the things I always question was like, well, what business are you going to start? And before I even get there, I asked them, well, what are you majoring in? They talk about they have this discipline that they're majoring in. And I talked to them about, well, why don't you, like, you've just paid for an education. Why don't you now let someone pay you to learn? And that's kind of what Tae was talking about. She took the opportunity. Yes, she was an entrepreneur, but she was learning for someone else while getting paid, and then decided to branch out on her own after she got those skills. So basically making mistakes on other people's dime. That's what you want to do if you can.
Yeah, because I mean, it's always good to learn from somebody first. Now, if you already know everything, I think that's great. But I always think it's better sometimes to go and learn from someone so that you can have some kind of understanding instead of just saying, I'm gonna do this on my own, and you have no understanding and you just keep messing up instead of saying, you know what, I can take a year to learn or 2 years to learn so that when I actually start my own business, I'll be great in it.
Yeah. And at the same time, I know you've heard me talk about podcasts around raising capital. At the same time you're learning, you're also you're able to set aside capital to start your own business. Because as you know, as an early stage entrepreneur, when you're starting your business, it's going to take some type of capital resource. Even if you're going to get some type of market funding, they want to see that you have some type of capital on your side. So, and we'll dive into it a little bit further. I don't want to take too much from Tae Lee because, like I said, I know her time is precious, and I want to make sure we get the most out of the audience, including myself, get the most out of her during this time I have with her. So, with that, now you're First Alert Tax Services, and what was next? Or are you still doing all three today? You said you were doing.
No, okay. So I'm not working. I'm not working at the restaurant anymore.
Okay.
I'm not working at the restaurant. We stopped the franchise, and then I sold everything that I had for Taes Shoes and Accessories. So I found somebody, and they bought everything, and I was like, "This is so dope."
So
because I don't want to do this anymore.
Wait a minute. Hold on. How long were you in business with Taes Shoes and Accessories? Like, how long was that?
I don't know. Maybe 2 to 3 years.
So basically, you started a business, and then you were able to sell it in 2 to 3 years to have additional capital to start doing something else.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So again, people, like I say, these are stories of one person's experience. This may not, how you have those disclaimers, usually on the exercise equipment or weight loss planning, results not typical for everyone.
They are not typical. Everything is a case-by-case basis. I promise you, everything is a case-by-case basis. So
just keep that in mind, but definitely use all these stories to take notes, use them as inspiration and things to do to find your own way and things you want to think about. So now you get rid of all that. You have this capital. You're doing your tax business. And so now are you all in on the tax business?
I was doing real estate also.
Okay.
While doing the tax business, doing real estate. Because I always wanted to be a landlord. Well, I'm not gonna say a landlord, but I always wanted to have real estate. So.
And what do you find most interesting about real estate? I know what you mean about not wanting to be a landlord. Not that most landlords don't like people, but tenants come with a whole nother. Tenants and people sometimes I say are different.
They're fun. They're fun.
So
they are definitely fun.
They are. And I know you love all your tenants. And I'm assuming you're still doing real estate today?
Yeah.
As well as taxes?
We still have tenants. We still have. Yep.
And so in real estate, what is it that you found the most interesting? I always say, and I'll kind of lead you into this, I always say that real estate is one of today, probably the fastest ways to grow your net worth. Because of the appreciation value, and then if you're renting, you then also have the rental income and cash flow. So it's to me, I think I find it as a powerful tool, a powerful asset into generating wealth. And again, it may be just only, some people say, well, it's only on paper, but that carries a lot of weight again when you're trying to get capital from people. They want to see what assets do you have. So I know there's something that interests me. What is the most interesting thing to you about real estate and growing your portfolio? Is it from the transactional side of the buying and selling? Is it the buying and holding, or is it just the total portfolio growth?
I think the total portfolio growth would be, I think that would be, because it's so many ways you can do it. So I think a lot of people buy and hold, especially me, because I like the cash flow.
Okay.
I like the cash flow. Some people like to flip, that's just what they do. But I know a lot of people that buy and hold and then they also flip. So because you have to think about it, you may buy something and it may take 6 to 7. You got to get it renovated.
Yep. And
then you have to sell it. So that could take 6 to 7 months if you have good contractors. If you have good contractors. So it's definitely a process, but I think I like it overall.
Okay. And my point was, this is not going to be a real estate class. There are a lot of folks that you can go to, see them pop up on various social media sites. They can dive into all aspects of real estate, like you said, fix and flip, buy and hold, cash flow models, etc. But it's more to talk about her diversity as an entrepreneur, and how she is in her journey. So now, you have taxes. I don't know if this is actually now. She may say she's doing something else here in a second, folks. So I gotta see. So, but at this moment where we're talking about your journey, you have a tax service or company that you're managing, a real estate portfolio. How are you able to balance and since you just said these are both currently going, and I didn't even touch on Never Go Broke yet. So before we get to Never Go Broke, how did you manage just those two things simultaneously? I know they're somewhat related around the tax aspect and deductions and all of that, but still it's kind of two different business models, from having a tenant client base versus a general public client base that's looking to have taxes filed. How do you balance that?
Well, taxes are seasonal.
Okay.
So I always remember that taxes are seasonal. It's not something that you do all year, but it depends on if you're an accountant or not. I'm not an accountant. So taxes are seasonal. And then when it comes to the real estate, for me and the tenants that I have, we don't have a lot of problems. So we don't have a lot of problems. I rarely get phone calls. So it's not really something hard. I mean, when we first got into it, you have to, I'm not going to say train, but you have to train your tenants depending on who had them before. So it's just a learning process, but my tenants don't have bad tenants, thank God.
Right. So
thank God. So it's not hard, if that makes sense. You're able to balance both.
Yeah, I can certainly see that because what you just keyed on is that you spend a lot of time up front training or educating your tenants on what the do's and don'ts are. You also spend a lot of time up front educating yourself to kind of make it more of a seamless transition or transaction
process.
And a process. Go ahead.
If you put the correct processes in order, it'll definitely help and get things completed. So that's how it is for me. Like I always tell my tenants, and I guess that I'm saying this wrong when I say this, but I always tell them, unless the apartment's burning down, like you can't just call for anything. And then I always say, if it's burning down, then you might want to call the fire department before you call me, because I can't do nothing. Like you got to get somebody else there. So it's kind of like a thing. And I'm not saying you can't call me for anything, but I'm saying you have to put it in a certain way so that they won't call you for every single thing. And you're just like, well, I can't do anything about that, because I've had some call me in the beginning and be like, well, the light bulb glowed. And I'm like, okay. Like,
right. What
do you want me to do about it? So it's just a thing of, putting procedures and techniques and everything in place.
Yeah. And certainly what you can say is more what you did was set expectations for the client and the customer. So when you set expectations, then there are no surprises.
Right.
You just have to be consistent. So when you're thinking about your business and when you're going on this journey, you got to think about setting and meeting expectations and being consistent.
Right.
Consistency is what will make it easy for you. I know, she's thinking about in the moment, she kind of glossed over how difficult it was in the beginning for setting those expectations. But believe me, there was some time spent there. You're seeing it on the other end after all that hard work. If you're a big sports fan and whoever you're following, I'll just pick two sports, basketball and football, you see the end product. You don't get a chance to see them when they're in practice on the field or in the gym, or all that work that they did before, that soaking in the ice bath, licking their wounds, as they would say, all those scars and marks. You don't get to see that. And I said something earlier about, when you have those scrapes, bruises, etc., it comes back in the form, a scab comes over it, and then it makes it even stronger and tougher. So believe me, that's going to be their part of your journey. And now getting back to Tae, she talked about, what's making it easy for is, again, level setting expectations, being consistent, and being in contact and communication with the client. Once you do that, then you kind of eliminate surprises. What you don't want to do, hopefully you guys have heard this cliche. If you haven't, write this down: overpromise and underdeliver. That will get you fired right away. And I say fired, even though you're your own boss, so to speak. Your clients are really your boss. They can fire you. The people that are giving you money stop giving you money. That's the same as you getting fired. Just think about it. You go to the job. When your job stops paying you, you got fired. So it works the same way. And what we don't want you to do is get fired. That's why we're teaching all these techniques, and I'll bring you people such as Tae Lee that can kind of talk through that. Now, with that, Tae, bring us, what else do you have going on? Because we got two things that you're currently doing today. That
the company Never Go Broke. So we have that.
And Never Will Go Broke, I think you said it is a financial literacy firm?
Financial literacy company. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what are your goals that you're hoping to do with Never Go Broke? Like, what is its mission?
Teaching as much financial literacy as possible so that we can build generational wealth and not generational debt.
And why, where do you see that being an issue or a problem? Because, I mean, as you see, anytime on TV, there seems to be millions of people that are wealthy through Bitcoin. So what is, and, of course, we have our beloved Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos that everyone talks about. What is this? Who is this solving a problem for? Like, where do you see this being a big need, the financial literacy?
Financial literacy, for me, it seems like the biggest need is for middle to lower income.
Okay.
It seems like that's where the biggest need is, because they just don't know.
They don't know. And when you say they don't, go ahead. Sorry.
They just don't know. They don't know what to do with it. When they get the money, they spend it. It's just a lot of things that they don't know. And I'm not saying just because you're rich that it could be different, but for me, I see that's what the biggest need is. Because I just think about people that, like you said, football and basketball, a lot of them don't come from something, so they get the money and then it's all gone. And it's like, oh my God, if I would have did this, and that, like, how do you spend 20 million? How do you lose that much money? So I think it's something that people should know in the beginning as much as they can, no matter how old they are. And then by the time they get to adulthood or to wherever they're going to be, they have some understanding of it. I think the younger, the better.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And what you're talking about, that's where the literacy comes in at. How do you lose all that? If you don't have an understanding of it, you'll lose it. Just like anything, take money out of anything you don't understand, you tend to lose or you break it, so to speak, because you don't understand how it works and how sensitive it is. And you talked about people that have this a massive amount of wealth, such as an athlete. It sounds like what you're saying with the financial literacy, and along with that, because then you also talk about the other end, when you get money, and then what do you do with it? So it sounds like it's about wealth creation and wealth retention. So the wealth creation part is when you start accumulating money and have things to put in your pocket. So how do you go about doing that? How do you create wealth for yourself? And that could come about as being an entrepreneur or going out work. Some kind of way you're going to have wealth creation where monies are coming in. And then it's about wealth retention. How do you keep the money and make sure that you never go broke, and you never go broke, so to speak. And it sounds like through Never Go Broke, you're kind of setting people up with ways or tools to kind of help them make sure that they have that wealth retention.
Right. And you have to think about, so for me and my background, what do a lot of people have to deal with? Taxes and real estate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it all ties into it. That's a lot of things that people have to deal with, taxes and real estate, and whether that real estate is renting, whether that real estate is whatever they have going on. And taxes is so important. So all of these things help when it comes to anything that has to do with Never Go Broke.
Okay. So, I know that Never Go Broke. What I want to do is, I know that's a platform that you have that has kind of evolved over time. And I think you have some other projects and products that have come out of Never Go Broke. And now that I see the trifecta here between the real estate, taxes, and financial literacy, what I want to do is take a break or a pause here and come back and kind of bring all those things together and dive a bit further into the financial literacy piece of Never Go Broke, because it seems to be like a big pinnacle or climax, pinnacle point in her journey here. So with that, folks, I'm going to take a pause here and come back with you more of Tae Lee. Again, if you haven't, as you listen to this episode and you haven't heard those, please go back and find us. You'll find a lot of great information, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Get2Biz. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on this segment. We would love to hear your feedback about today's subjects. Shoot us a message on Instagram at Get2Biz or email us at info@get2biz.com to stay up to date with all our future endeavors. This podcast is made possible by viewers like you. We hope the info given today encourages you to get up and get to biz.